In 2023, we saw micro-stamping be removed as a requirement for the handgun roster, and we saw new legislation pushing it through again in 2028. It's time to circle back. Let's talk about it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel today. That's right, we are going to take a step back and observe a lawsuit that is ongoing along with legislation that happened in 2023. To do that, we've brought on the Director of Development. He is also the host of Firing Line Radio. On Saturday is when you can catch him on AM 590 The Answer. As always, that is Rick Travis. Rick, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me on, Kevin.
Absolutely. But before we get into this today, I just want to say, guys, it is working. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to these videos. Hit that notification bell so that when we drop these videos, they get into your channel as quickly as possible so that you can view them. We want to make sure that everybody is as notified and educated as possible moving forward in 2024. So, Rick, let's go over this a little bit because we have the Boland v. Bonta case that had to do with micro-stamping, or at least that was a part of the case that we challenged, and that the state ultimately didn't end up appealing to the Ninth Circuit along with the magazine disconnect mechanism and the chamber load indicator. There has been talk around saying maybe they just didn't think to challenge it because there was legislation going through the process of being signed last year having specifically to do with micro stamping. And before I get your take on this, I just want to make sure we're all on the same playing field here, guys. So in this bill from 2023, the state defines microstamping as this. Microstamp means a microscopic array of characters that may be used to identify a specific serial number of a firearm from spent cartridge casings discharged by that firearm. So that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about the ability to imprint an identifiable number on a casing. Now, Rick, I know this is something you spent a lot of time arguing against. Can you go ahead and just talk about the consistencies or inconsistencies with the case Boland v. Bonta and the legislation from 2023?
Sure. So in Boland, people got excited. At the time, I said, don't get too excited. The legislature does not like losing, doesn't see itself as losing, no matter how many times we defeat them in a courtroom. And they're always trying like, oh, okay, so I can't have, I'll take the example, they're like 3-year-olds with a cookie. Mom and dad can't have the Oreo. No, you can't have any cookies. So that's mom and dad saying no cookies. But the kid is like, oh, I can't have Oreo. How about oatmeal chocolate chip? How about this? How about that? Like they continue to go for a cookie. They think your answer is to that one specific thing. So they just kind of keep coming around in a circle. And we know that, those of us that work up in the legislature. So I think it's important to understand too that, when a bill first comes out, like this is Senator Blake Spear, she's the one that wants to do insurance on everything. She's trying to find every way she can to kill the ownership of firearms. And one of the things Senator Blake Spear is working on doing is trying to move forward this concept that California can do anything at once, and not just terms of breaking laws, but that it doesn't matter if it's the most futuristic item. We can do it tomorrow because we're California. And she constantly preaches that, and we hear it all the time from the dais, which is where the other members sit. So looking specifically, when we went after this bill, when it first came out, Senate Bill 52, one of the things that she said was exactly what you read, what the definition of microstamping. But she also said it's only going to go on semi-automatic pistols. So the whole purpose behind microstamping, according to the author, is, hi, we want to do this so that if a bad person uses a firearm, we can track them down. All right, well, there's several issues with that right off the bat. Number one, when you go to the range, and if this technology really existed, you would have casings ejected from your semi-automatic pistol. A lot of people don't pick up the casings because of other laws California's passed, as you know, Kevin. We're not supposed to be picking stuff up at the range because that's range ammo. And the idea is that ammo casings get picked up and recycled. So several issues come up. One, there's people that could immediately have, those casings out there that could use them at a crime scene, shoot somebody. We see Hollywood movies do this all the time. The person shoots someone, picks up their casings, but now they can drop yours to have you accused, even though you were never there, but it would look like you were there. Other issues that come into this is that you have the issue of not all casings will work, but number two, it's very easy to remove a microstamp. Number three, what do you do about the firearms beforehand? Her attitude was, well, we'll do recalls to have those come in. That's incredibly complex and I would argue impossible. But the most important part was during testimony, we brought the inventor of microstamping in who said, yeah, it doesn't work and it won't work for the foreseeable next 25 plus years because the technology just doesn't work.
Which kind
and
of
that's why they wrote the bill the way they did, Kevin. If you notice throughout the bill, it's like, well, if we haven't figured out by this time, we'll extend it. If we haven't figured out by this time, we'll extend it. It's because of this belief that one day they're going to get it no matter what.
Yeah, that kind of brings me to my next point. I am reading in this bill. It seems almost like they planned on making an admission in a future court case. I mean, I'm sure that they assume, like in the Boland case, this is going to get challenged in court. But just look at the actual words that are used in this piece of legislation. Section 2 says, on or before March 1st, 2025, the Department of Justice shall engage in an investigation to determine the technology viability of microstamping components. And then every single section after that. So what we're looking forward to with this bill, if this microstamping is deemed viable, September 1st, 2025, they're going to provide written guidance on performance standards. If it's viable, January 1st, 2026, they're going to commence accepting applications for licensure. If it's viable, July 1st, 2026, they're going to provide grants to produce microstamping components, and then you look forward to the actual implementation of the law in 2028. My question to you is, microstamping was already a requirement in California for how many years? And then in 2023, they're writing a bill saying, we need to do research to see if this is even viable or not. Where the heck is the accountability for these lawmakers? I know that we always have to circle back to this. It goes back to your votes. But guys, if you're looking to change minds, I mean, what steps can we take? Do we really need to work our social networks and all of this stuff to prove to people that, hey, these guys just make bills based on an agenda, not for the safety of people? I mean, do you read into this the same way?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. They pass bills, not just in this space, but across all of legal actions and legislative actions. They constantly are coming up with bills that the technology doesn't exist, the funding mechanism doesn't exist. I mean, right now, depending on who you talk to, Kevin, the governor on the low end is right around 40 billion. The legislative analysts are right around 70 billion, and the tax board is like closer to 90 billion dollars in the hole. It doesn't matter. We're billions in the hole. And yet, this legislature is trying to figure out how to add billions more. So, these are only people like Kevin. If you're broke, you have no money, and you need to put a new roof on, you're either taking a loan out or you're not putting a new roof on because you don't have the money. They don't care. It's just our future, our kids' future, our grandkids' future, our great-grandkids' future now that they're taxing to be able to do things that don't exist. And each of these create a bureaucracy, each of these create issues, and then politicians hate killing bureaucracies because that means increasing joblessness.
Well, one of the byproducts that we've seen from microstamping regulations obviously has been firearms not being able to be on the roster. I'm kind of curious what some of the other byproducts of this moving forward, and you mentioned a little bit earlier that these microstamps wouldn't necessarily be able to be removed from the casing. So if this technology was embraced by manufacturers and it was implemented, and we did start seeing firearms coming into California that have microstamp technology on them, is that like just the end of reloads as far as you can tell? How does that work?
No, I don't think that would be the case at all. I mean, you have to think about it. If you're a firearms manufacturer, you're producing firearms for the globe and then there's a one state option called California. So unless this was to explode across the country, and a lot of our bills, like Assembly Bill 28, that gave us the 11% tax that goes in effect this summer, it is being spread across the country. Microstamping hasn't. And a lot of that is because places do not want to not have firearms out. And so the scheme in California, I don't think is going to fly, at least for the next few years, anywhere else, which means manufacturers have no incentive. I mean, you know, if you're cranking all 10 production lines on, let's just take a common Glock, why would you shut one down to invest all this money first? There's no point in it. Like, just don't do it. And so that's one of the other arguments is this does not make Californians safer. As technology has changed, firearms get safer and safer. You look at the SIGs, the Glocks, Smith & Wessons, Rugers that are out in 2024 compared to those that were out in 2014. They're much safer. They're much more dynamic. They give much more control. Yet we can't get those because the roster. That's part of what Boland v. Bonta is all about, is breaking up the roster so we can improve firearm safety, which is the argument of the left, but it's us that are arguing for it.
Well, and we have seen sort of the split in this as the microstamping technology has kind of been taken out of the Boland case because they didn't appeal it. Obviously, we are looking forward to winning Boland as microstamping has already fallen off, and we might see even more firearms coming onto the roster if we do get a good decision in that. But as for microstamping, I mean, we basically already have a lawsuit that's determined this is unconstitutional. What are your final thoughts on this moving forward? I know that it's a timeline, you know, that isn't exactly right up in our faces. This is looking to be implemented in 2028. But what are your thoughts moving forward with this?
I think it's going to be interesting. There's been a couple different groups. There's been a Native American group that is buying out part of a firearms company that they've talked about doing microstamping because they see an economic advantage. That's where it's going to come from. I mean, I often say, as you know, Kevin, that it's members of our own Second Amendment community within the tent that cause us the most trouble. And that's one of the issues. We may see somebody trying to take an economic advantage of that. That could speed this along. Obviously, if that was to happen, we would see more legislation trying to push this forward. We're obviously going to be fighting this. And so right now we've got a little bit of time. There's no harm caused yet. So to bring a lawsuit forward, we can't do that. But as soon as that gets closer to 28, you'll probably see a lawsuit. A lot of people are like, oh, when did that happen? We'll have to say 5 years ago. But that's what I see playing out.
Well, certainly something that we're going to keep in mind as we watch Boland v. Bonta work its way through the Ninth Circuit, and something we're going to look forward to in the next coming years as they start implementing all of these processes that they laid out in the bill. Rick, I want to thank you very much for taking the time. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And guys, if you like these videos and content like this, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. It really helps us with the algorithms to get this message out there so that everybody is as informed as possible. Hit that notification bell so that you get these videos as soon as they are dropped. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.